All right, let's start with the SPY. SPY right now is right at the 38 fib. If you dive into the actual intraday action or look at this candle, you can see that the bulls took it up. This was all green at one point. I don't know why Warden is showing a red candle. This is actually a green candle. So the bulls took it all the way up to this price action here. Okay. And if we want to look at it from an intraday, we can see that the bulls basically took it all the way up and they faded at the end of the day, probably after 3 o'clock. So that's something to be aware of. What I also want you to think about is if this fib does break, and this is something that we've said pretty much been the line of sand, 1, 2, what was resistance becomes support, came support here, and now currently is holding. But if it breaks below, in my belief, if it breaks below this low of 176.88, we definitely have a lot more pain to go through, because the only time I see is it getting back to this 50 level. Okay, and that 50 level is at 175, so we're talking about another 3 points down. So we have to look at that. Look at the weekly. We also see that it's holding, but we do have an engulfing pattern. It's not above the 10-day. It also has bearish MACD, so you have to keep those things in consideration. So yes, touching the 38.2 fib and holding, but again, that line of sand gets broken is definitely a lot more. If you look at the weekly time frame, you can see we get back to 173, maybe test down this 170 area. So keep those things in mind. The Russell came again. This candle was fully green at one point and faded after a certain time. So let's see. Again, same thing. After 3, faded to the downside. Fought very hard from the gap down. Remember, we were down, 10, 12 handles, during pre-market, and it came back up with, a lot of strength, but then faded off. Again, we're looking at if it gets below this low of 1119.80, it is going to go down some more. And we also can see this well-defined uptrend that we see, this channel that's pretty much been ping-ponging all along. It is now fighting the bottom. It is not back in the channel. So you have to really be aware of that. QQQ, same thing. This one's a little bit better being that it's closed above the 50-day, but it needs to get back into this up channel, the down part of this up channel. So we want to see it get above, around this 87, 88 level. We have to see that, or again, we can see some more downside. And going back to that QQQ, if it breaks down below this, because we've seen some huge gaps. Remember, it's gapped down, gapped up, then gapped down again. If it comes back down and breaks this low of 84.76, this is definitely not a good look. So we really have to kind of look at that. Diamond doesn't look good at all, quite honestly. It's still below here, and quite honestly, I don't see anything. And if you took this 200 off, because remember, the 200 is not a net, so it's not going to catch a stock. But if you took that off, look at the weekly, it's still just in a range, but it hasn't broken 50, so that's probably that still is a good sign. But at the end of the day, I would be very, very cautious, because you see a lot of volatility. It's down about 5.5% from the top, so we could kind of keep that in mind. There have been some names that do look good. Facebook looks good. If it could break above this high, that would be an excellent thing. Netflix got up. If it could break this high on Monday, that could continue to go to the upside. You have this energy stock that looked really good. It's in oil and gas. So if that gets above this high and breaks above, have some strong volume right here. So that's a really, really good sign with an engulfing pattern. That looks good. You got Google. Google is continuing to look up. You can look at that it's pretty much, it came down a little bit at the open, and once it got above here, it pretty much it stayed and grinded. It was really grinding up. But that's fine. But if it breaks above this high, it definitely could be something good. And you also have Win. Win looks really, really good right here, right now, and it has some high volume. So that, and bullish MACD. So this thing's really, really look good to me for the time being. Twitter, another one. I was looking at this. I've been saying this for weeks. We want to see it get above this level. If it could get above these highs, I'm back in. You got a nice bearish, bullish curl up in the MACD. And you're breaking a price level from this downtrend. It's just trending sideways. You look at the candle as well to the weekly. That should be actually more attractive, because you're actually seeing a hammer coming at the 10. So if it breaks above there, it definitely could come back and test these highs. So Trade them well. I know it's been a very, very hard week to trade. If you're looking to swing trade, intraday guys love this type of action. But if you don't feel good, remember that cash is always a position. Take care.